Not going to waste my 10 minutes talking about the political environment out there, because we all know it's pretty depressing. And we all know also that the watchwords at the moment are merger, collaboration, consortia, partnering up, etc., etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about what your balance of duties might be as a trustees in these situations. Because it's always seemed to me that there's almost a conflict. You know, as a trustee, your duty is to preserve the mission of your organisation, is to almost to preserve the assets, it's to keep it safe. And yet, if you're looking to collaborate or merge, then that involves thinking outside the box. It seems to involve doing something new. So it's quite a difficult balance for you to get in hand. And also to understand that, in fact, thinking outside the box and doing the new thing is actually the best way you might have to preserve what you've got. And because sometimes staying as what you are is not the way to achieve the preservation of your values and your organisation. I'm also going to say something rather unfashionable, which is you don't have to merge, you don't have to collaborate, you don't have to form a consortium if you don't want to. There are other things you can do in this climate, and they include going for maintaining some earned income, getting that business partnership, for example. It can even involve restructuring, I hate to say it, redundancy, or even closing down. You don't have to go down a route. When you think about merger or collaboration, you want to set it back into the strategic purpose of your organisation. Let me give you a couple of examples, though, of situations that have worked. I'm a refugee from the city, and I know from my own experience that mergers can be incredibly painful. But in my time, it was fine because I took the money and ran and happily joined the third sector. But don't underestimate that. My own social enterprise that I formed, we were in the mezzanine hub at Cannes at London Bridge, which is a bit like what this organisation is. And there were 50 small charities sharing open plan offices. It had obvious benefits in that you have flexible space, you could move in and out and add desks, which was fine, and we were all licensees of a charity. But it had other benefits like sharing the post room and the reception. But there were benefits of collaboration there that were greater than was immediately apparent. I mean, first of all, you had a much better Christmas party than you would otherwise have had. Secondly, and nobody really realised this till we all moved in, that one of the problems with a small charity is keeping staff for very long and then recruiting new ones. Well, if there's 50 of you in a hub, actually it's very easy for a member of staff who's got a bit fed up to move somewhere else, or for you to recruit. And then beyond that, there are possibilities of forming those networks and undertaking that peer learning that is a very valuable part of collaborating for small organisations. And we benefited from that. Collaboration is a big word. I mean, what does it mean? It means some kind of relationship, which is more than having an occasional cup of coffee with the chief executive of the next door charity. It often involves a formal agreement, and it goes along a spectrum, with some people saying that the end of the spectrum is merger. Within that, there's all sorts of things you can do to collaborate. There's fundraising. The most well-known example of that, I guess, is the Disasters Emergency Committee. If there's been a tsunami or whatever, you'll see adverts on television. In fact, that's a partnership of 12 of the major charities who realised that to get effective fundraising for these big crises, you need to have one single face. Then you have the co-locating that I've talked about. Then you have joint projects. And that is where two organisations want to achieve something that actually cuts across the focus of what each individual organisation does. An interesting example of this was Stonewall, who had a joint project with Shelter to look at problems facing housing for gay people. And then you can have outsourcing, you can manage your accounting, your HR, through joining up with other charities and forming a separate organisation to do that. So what's the benefits of it? Well, you've got a wider range of services maybe for beneficiaries. You've got financial savings, better use of resources. And you also have a bigger voice than you could individually have. You can also share the risk in a new project. And you've got knowledge and information sharing. And then, of course, we have the consortium, which is the collaboration formed to deliver public service contracts. Margaret talked about the problem of bid candy, and that's a big issue with the work programme. But for my former organisation was a subcontractor in a consortium to deliver a very large bid. For us, it was hugely beneficial. The leader was actually an employee-owned company, so depending on your definitions, it's either a private sector organisation or it's a social enterprise. But for us, it transformed us in terms of income. We learnt a lot. We got access to doing a lot of new work that we would never otherwise have done, and it changed our image in the marketplace hugely. So I wouldn't necessarily knock the subcontracting model, because I think it's a great way to get expertise in an area that you don't have experience of. The difficult problem, I think, is sometimes to find the partner. I noticed at the earlier presentation from the funders that there were suggestions there that Southwark possibly arranges events, and certainly turning up to events like this is a good way. What you should do, though, is not just settle for the boy or girl next door, especially if you're seeking a merger partner. It's very easy to marry the boy or girl next door, and it quite often doesn't work. And so if you are seeking for that sort of activity, what you really need to do is actually go out and work out what is it you need. What are you looking to do from it? What is essential to you? What is there that you cannot give up? And what is there that you could negotiate? And if I give you an example of that, it's a rather big charity. It was when NSPTC merged with Childline. Heard of Childline? It was Esther Lanson's charity. Well, it started having problems with its reserves in sort of 2005, and spoke to NSPCC, and it proved beneficial for both. Childline had some bottom lines that they wanted to preserve their distinctiveness and their brand and not be swallowed up. NSPCC greatly valued the expertise that Childline had. I mean, it was a great chance for them to understand what really worried children, because Childline had the evidence for them, and it kept them as a very child-centred organisation. Childline also gained a huge investment that they couldn't afford themselves in IT and in modernising the way that the children were wanting to approach them, because technology was changing, and so the investment from NSPCC actually enabled them to grow enormously the number of calls, and so they ended up with over 1 million calls a year. But there was also cost savings, that they could give up some of their premises and move into offices that are owned by NSPTC. So I would, if you are looking for a deep collaboration or indeed a merger, you need to spend time as trustees thinking, what is your mission? What are you about? What is there that you will and will not give up to gain that? Because merger, especially, involves loss. And don't think that merger will happen without loss. For the start, some trustees may not get taken on to the new organisation, so there's a personal loss. Some of your staff may lose their jobs. You will actually do things slightly differently. Some of the ways you have of doing, undertaking activities will have to change. And you have to understand that and preserve it. But why is it the right solution? Well, I mean, it's obvious but true, but nearly half of them take place because of financial difficulties. And my only advice there is, if you think you might need to merge, and you think you're running out of money, do it quickly. And don't wait till you're in such a bad position that you've either closed down or you're at risk of closing down, because apart from anything else, you won't be in a very strong negotiating position to preserve what's important to you. You can merge for greater sustainability. People sometimes merge to enhance the opportunities to their own staff. You can strengthen your management and support functions. You can save money. There's other reasons as well. I mean, governance is quite a big cause, especially for smaller charities. How many of you have heard of founder syndrome? Okay. Well, quite a lot of charities merge when the founder decides to move on for whatever reason. And the founder could be either the chair or the chief executive. And that's the time when you as a trustee board can actually say, why were we set up? What was our purpose? Does that purpose still exist? Especially since the drive that the original founder created has moved. And maybe this is the time where we need to share with another partner and actually merge our mission. And so governance is a key issue. And also, of course, there's the external pressures. Terence Higgins Trust is still a very well-known charity. It was funded, obviously, with the spread of HIV in the 80s. And interestingly, over 300 local charities were formed to help people suffering from HIV/AIDS, which was amazing. And in the sort of mid-1990s, a couple of things happened. First of all, the new drug therapy meant that people were living much longer, that the original care, which was for palliative care, was not so much necessary. And also, as a result of that partly, funding from the Department of Health dried up, that it wasn't ring-fenced anymore. And as a result, there was a major restructuring of the HIV and AIDS charities, and Terence Higgins merged with a series of them, including the very well-known one, Lighthouse, and that's the one you always see Princess Diana visiting. And so external reasons may force you to change. Let me finish up. Am I running out of time? Yes. What's your role as a trustee? Quickly. Delegate power. Don't wait for your 3 monthly trustee meetings to make the next step in the decision. You've got to be able to take decisions quickly. Don't meddle too much. Stay engaged, though. Find the skills to make sure that you can do enough due diligence to make it happen. Don't, and that can involve networking. A lawyer will tell you to pay them lots of money. I guess most of you can't afford that. So find out who you know who can give you pro bono support and can help you. Make sure there is a process in place. But the most important success factor is the people involved. Leadership is the most important success factor in any merger. Support your staff and your CEO. They will need help. It's a new process for them. It's a tough process. They're going to have to learn new skills. Do what you can to support them. And evaluate the outcome. There was my last point, there was a survey the Charity Commission did a few years ago of whether mergers had been successful. About 90% of charities responding said, oh yeah, it's been really successful. But only 65%, I think, of those had actually done any evaluation. So my question has always been, how do they know it was successful? Thank you.